They haven't won a league title for over 30 years, but they find themselves in a commanding position in Serie A. It might be now or never for Napoli, so can they hold out and bring home the Scudetto? Hello there and welcome to Football Now from Doha. Now, winning a title in one of Europe's top 5 leagues is no easy feat. You need nerves of steel, moments of quality, and maybe even a little bit of luck along the way. In Italy, over the course of the past 20 years or so, 3 teams have dominated Serie A: Juventus, AC Milan and Inter. But it's Napoli who sit top of the pile with just a couple of months of the season remaining. So let's remind ourselves how they've got to this point of what has been a thrilling campaign so far. Prior to their second season under manager Luciano Spalletti, it was a summer of wholesale changes to the squad, as previous regulars Kalidou Koulibaly, Fabian Ruiz and Lorenzo Insigne all left the club. This opened the door for some new arrivals. Midfielder Frank Anguissa was signed from Fulham, and explosive winger Kavica Kvaratskhelia was brought in from Georgian side Dinamo Batumi. Both players have been integral to the success that has followed. After kicking off the season in August, Spalletti's free-flowing style of play has blown away almost everybody in their path. They went unbeaten in Serie A in the first 15 games of the season, before the break for the FIFA Qatar 2022 World Cup. And the good form continued after the tournament, winning 8 of their 10 games that have followed so far. The biggest statement of their title credentials, though, came in January, when Juventus, one of the biggest clubs in the country, could not live with Spalletti's team, as they were beaten 5-1 at the Stadio Diego Maradona in what was probably the most complete performance of Napoli's season. With 13 games to go, they find themselves a commanding 15 points clear at the top of the table.
Napoli have always had a core of players that we always know of. Dries Mertens, Lorenzo Insigne, Kalidou Koulibaly. They just didn't have that mentality, that desire to be cynical, to fight for everything at the very top level. And unfortunately for them, they kept losing to Juventus at the big moments, but a lot of them left. So in comes Spalletti. This season, everyone expected Napoli to drop off a little bit. Last year, they had started really well as well with all of those veterans, but unfortunately for them, once again, that psychology, that mentality sort of took it away from them and they started to drop. But weirdly enough, ever since they've lost their veterans, they seem to have shaken off that weakness on a psychological level. They don't care about the pressure. They're simply having fun. They thumped Juventus in such a manner to show themselves to be a team that just didn't care what anyone thought. Spalletti has gotten them playing beautiful attacking football, and it's working. Well, the players on the pitch are making most of the headlines, but what about the man behind the game plan? Well, Luciano Spalletti is approaching the 3rd decade of his managerial career. He spent most of that time in Italy, but he's proven that he can win a title, having done so with Zenit St. Petersburg in Russia. So can he win one in his homeland? And what makes his story so special? Spalletti is a true tactician, like an artist in a sense. His use of Perotta and just his game in general is what inspired Marcello Lippi to win the 2006 Italian World Cup. A lot of that was based on the tactics developed, used and utilized by Spalletti. So in terms of real, honestly, tactics, he's your #1 guy. Another thing that's always been sort of highlighted with him is that he's a nearly man. He always creates something special, but doesn't really know how to win. Of course, he went over and won the Russian Premier League, but not in Italy. They did so well, Napoli last season, but couldn't quite keep that going to win something. It was all the other things that he hasn't quite been able to do, which this season he seems to do. He's really nurtured this team to be something special. The perfect storm sees Napoli in with the chance of lifting their first league title since way back in 1990. So what would it mean to the people of the city and the history of the club if they can bring that trophy back to Naples?
For the people that as my age, I was born in 1989, a Scudetto of Naples is something you only heard about it. Everybody that I meet in Naples from abroad, they always say, oh, I will come for the great party. Already some professors at the university that say to their students, when Napoli wins on Sunday evening, if they want, they can stay at home because they have to celebrate that on Sunday Napoli won. These are all little episodes that are examples of the great connection between the city and the team. This is the only Italian big city that has just one team. Milan has Inter and Milan, Rome has Lazio and Roma. So it explains for some parts why there is this great connection between the city and the team.
Well, things might be going well for Napoli, but Italian football is in a somewhat tricky place. Juventus were recently handed a 15-point deduction for false accounting, bringing the reputation of the whole league into disrepute. It means that many of Serie A's top players could be looking to move elsewhere in the summer. So is winning a title now or never for Napoli?
I think, yes, there is a risk. I think Victor Osimhen next summer is gone from Italian football. I think the Premier League clubs, whether it's Manchester United or who it is, will look at Victor Osimhen and say, that is a player that we need, that will fly in the Premier League. If they do win the Serie A, and if they were to, by some miracle, win the Champions League, then and they've opened a winning cycle, and they will look to build on that. It's the perfect storm kind of brewing in the positive sense for Napoli to win the Serie A. First and foremost, that is the primary target.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting few months indeed. That is us out of time for this week's show. Do let us know your thoughts at home using the hashtag FootballNowNapoli, and we'll see you next time for more Football Now.